Shalom and Bruchim Habayim. My name is Rabbi Yitzchak Shapira and I'm your host of this program called Yoshvim, or in English, To Sit, where we bring a fascinating guest to talk to us about the Jewish Mashiach, Yeshua of Nazareth, and to share with us these incredible stories and testimonies. I would like to remind you that if you are blessed by this program, consider supporting this. In the lower third of your screen, there is a website. You can go there and find out more information. I'd like to turn our attention to the special guest today, Natan or Nate. Shalom, Seitelbach. How are you doing? We are here in Omaha, Nebraska, and I find a conservative Jew who believes that Yeshua is the Messiah. This is a crazy, crazy thing. So tell us, first of all, for the record, you are a Jew. You are a Messianic Jewish rabbi. Yes. I was a good Jewish boy. That's the $1,000,000 question. Come to know this. Obviously, you were not raised believing that Yeshua or Jesus is the Messiah. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and a conservative.
The second capital.
The second capital. I was a conservative Jewish background. My grandfather.
When you say conservative, let me just clarify. You were raised in Judaism. You were bar mitzvah.
That's correct.
You were raised in the Jewish tradition, not secular.
Bar mitzvah at Flatbush Park Jewish Center at the age of 13, yes.
And I understand somebody in your family was even a cantor, right?
My grandfather was a cantor, and I was being raised by my grandmother and grandfather for the first 8 years of my life.
And they're Ashkenazic, I assume?
They were Ashkenazic from Poland and old country, and my grandmother was blind, and she raised me.
Okay.
And then we moved in with my aunt and uncle when I was 8 years old, and so then she raised me.
Okay.
My father was in the Army overseas, and he was always away, so I never really had time to spend with him.
So in a way, you were raised by grandparents who probably were more traditional, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we can say clearly you were raised in Judaism.
I was, yes.
Okay, so how do you go from that, raised in Brooklyn, to finding out about the Jewish Messiah? You were not looking for a Jewish Messiah, were you? Or what happened? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, unfortunately, my family was very secular. After my grandfather had died, my aunt and uncle did not practice. They sent me to synagogue. I did my bar mitzvah, but they were not committed to going to synagogue and stuff. So after I was bar mitzvahed, I got into high school and I kind of left my faith and started wandering.
But you were not wandering to a point, say, I'm going to look for Yeshua or Jesus.
No, I was wandering a spiritual desert.
You still knew you were Jewish. You still had a Jewish identity, right?
That's correct. I still practice Passover and Hanukkah and all the important holidays, but I wasn't going to synagogue.
You were a cultural Jew. We call it a cultural Jew.
Yeah, American cultural Jew.
Okay, so American, and I think that our audience can relate. There's a lot of American cultural Jews. So how American cultural Jew found out about the Jewish Messiah? What happened?
Oh, that took many years. I was wandering and I drifted away. I lost my faith, and I lived in a world of...
I understand you also served in the Air Force, right?
I served 20 years in the Air Force, and I was a
You were not a believer, you didn't follow...
I would classify myself as an agnostic. I did not believe in God, and I was upset with him. When I was a child, my mother, I never knew my mother. They told me she died in childbirth, so I always felt that I was a murderer, that I had killed my mother, and I just drifted away from God. I didn't want to know Him. I was afraid of Him.
Wait, you said something very important. I want to clarify. So your mother died in childbirth.
That's what I was told.
Oh, you were told. And you had this condemnation that you carried upon yourself, thinking that she has died because of your birth.
That's correct.
Wow.
When I was 18 years old, I was in the Air Force stationed in Arkansas.
Arkansas. There are not too many Jews there.
Little Rock, Arkansas. My father had retired from the Army and moved back to New York, and he wrote me a letter.
Okay. How old were you, by the way?
I was 18.
Okay.
And he wrote me a letter and said that my mother, who died in childbirth, was looking for me.
My word.
That he's sorry he lied to me as a child,
What was your first reaction when you heard that?
I was angry, totally angry. Yeah. But he wouldn't tell me where she was, and he wouldn't tell her where I was. So I spent many years looking for her, but I never could find her.
Wow.
So he didn't want us to meet.
Okay.
And so I was very angry, very mad. I drifted into alcoholism.
Is that was a mean for you to kind of escape all this pain?
Escape reality. If you had all my problems, you would drink too, is what I always said.
Oh, wow.
And so
when you say...
alcoholism beat me up for 40 years.
Wow. So when you're talking about alcoholism, you're talking not a casual drink.
No.
You're talking about heavy, heavy drinking.
After I came back from Vietnam, I was drinking every day.
Oh, my.
All the time, when I wasn't working. Yes. I became a full-blown alcoholic.
And continuing to your 30s even with this thing?
When I got older and older, I left my family. I left my children. I was laying in the gutter when I woke up and felt that I had a problem and I needed to go get some help. And that's the first time in my life when I seeked out help.
What, you just got up one day and say,
I was laying in a pool of vomit and alcohol.
Wow.
And I said,
and
I was 41 years old.
Wow.
And I said, I need some help, so I went to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
And I started going to meetings. And within a few weeks, I get it's January 2nd, 1988, and I get a letter in the mail. I'm praying for a miracle that day. My life is miserable. I'm drinking, I'm going to meetings, trying to get well. I'm dying. I'm literally dying. And I get a letter in the mail, and then I open the letter. It's from the Missing Persons Bureau of the Salvation Army.
Wow.
And it says, if you would like to speak to your sister, call this number. I said, my sister? I'm an only child. My aunt and uncle, I had a brother and sister. They were my cousins, though. They weren't my brother and sister. But
did you pick it up and call?
So I called the number, and a southern voice came on and said I'd have to go get her. She didn't live here anymore. So I said to call back in an hour. So I called back in an hour, and I spoke to my sister, my other sister.
And what was that like?
My other sister, my brother, my other brother, and my mother. For the first time in my life, I was 41 years old.
What was that like? Can you put it even to words?
It's like God, who I didn't know, had just split the Red Sea for me.
Wow.
That was a miracle. And I said,
I can't even imagine.
You know what? There must be a God, and I need to go find him.
That was the beginning of your story of returning home.
Yes. And so I went back to the synagogue.
Okay.
Here in Omaha, Nebraska. That's where I was living. And I was very poorly received by the people there.
Why do you think?
They just weren't very nice. They didn't welcome me.
You are not a follower of this Jesus during this time.
No, right? I didn't know who he was.
Wow.
No. And, and then I said, they don't want me in the synagogues.
Oh, boy.
They weren't very nice to me.
Oh, boy.
I heard that these Christians had a God that loved them. I need to go find him because the God I knew as a child, I don't want to meet him again because I broke all of his commandments. Killed my mother. So I started going to church after church after church, and it was scary to go in and see a cross or things like that. Those
what
were
were you
scary
thinking
symbols.
when you're seeing this?
I didn't want to sit there. I didn't want to be in places where there was scary symbols and things like that, and I didn't want to know this Jesus guy, I needed to stay away from him. But finally, I found a church that I was comfortable in, that welcomed me and was very nice to me. It was a Nazarene church. Yes.
How crazy this is.
And I was able to be comfortable there and to be who I was, and I became a Christian.
You became a Christian?
Yeah.
So you thought you are no longer a Jew?
I didn't need to be a Jew anymore. I found Jesus, and I was baptized. I received the Lord, and I started being a Christian. And then 3 years after I'm in this church, the church is having many problems, and they decided to break up. And as I'm leaving the church, there's a sign on the bulletin board. It says, if you would like to buy rubber stamps, write to Jews for Jesus in California. And I said, Jews for Jesus? That's an oxymoron. You can't be Jewish and believe in Jesus.
So you really honestly thought you are no longer Jewish?
Right. So I wrote to Jews for Jesus, and they put me in touch with a Gentile in Omaha.
A Gentile.
A Gentile.
A Gentile.
Who I was able to meet with, and he taught me that I am Jewish and I have Jewish roots, and that Jesus, his real name is Yeshua, and he's Jewish too, and that I could connect with him. And then all of a sudden, everything I learned as a child came back to me, and
wow,
my Hebrew eyes just opened up through the New Testament, and here I am today, a Messianic rabbi.
So here, almost 20 years later, you are a Messianic rabbi. God has brought you a complete circle back.
Yes. And he restored my relationships, my wife. I remarried my wife and my children and everything. Wow.
What an amazing story that is. Tell me something. Maybe somebody watching you today, and I think you're in a good authority to speak, and they think that they're too deep, up to their eyeballs with sin. From your story, it sounds to me that the God you call upon, and the God of Israel, is not this God of wrath or rage, but he is a God of mercy and grace.
He's a loving, caring God, and he loves the Jewish people, especially all. So I didn't know that as a child.
So the God of Israel restored his relationship with him and with the world around. I want to give you a minute to address your Jewish people who probably watch it right now. I guess the one question I have for you, there was any aha moment for you that you can recall, that you said, aha, wait a second, Jesus was a Jew. I can be Jewish and believe in him. There was any moment that it just dawned on you like this?
It may have happened in my studies. But,
in your studies?
And I started studying. You know, when I first got saved as a Christian, they told me not to read the Old Testament. There was nothing in it. Maybe
it's a good word to tell our Jewish viewers that if they want to find Jesus,
so when I went back to the Tanakh, the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures, that's when I found Yeshua.
Wow.
And he's in every passage from Bereshit 1:1 all the way
to 2 Chronicles. Yeah. Amen, amen. You want to leave the Jewish audience with any word of encouragement, anything you want to leave that is on your heart for the people who will watch this?
Well, we all have trials and tribulations that we go through, but we know that God has already promised that he will bring us back to the Deuteronomy 30 verse 4, like you've been teaching, and he will bring us back. And so he has brought me back, and he will restore your relationship no matter how far down you are or how far you think you have fallen. There is a hope, there is a tikvah for you to come back.
And it's interesting, the name of your congregation is
Adat HaTikvat Zion, the Hope of Zion Congregation.
Yeah.
I think maybe that was a special name for us.
Amen, amen. Friends, I would like to leave you with these words. It's not too far, it is not too late. As God says to us, even in our own liturgy, she said, if we call upon him, we can restore. Nashuvu v'nashuva, chadesh. Renew our day as the day of old. This is a season of renewal. If you want to learn more about this message of hope and the message of the truth through Yeshua of Nazareth, just write us. We would gladly speak to you, pray with you, and encourage you. Anything that we can do, we are here for you. Rabbi Nate, your story has touched my life and blessed me so much. May the God of Israel continue to use you in bringing this message of restoration first to your own people.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I know you didn't get this part, but 10 years after I met my family, how many people meet a new family to begin with?
Amazing.
10 years later, I get an email from Gil Seitelbach in Israel. He wants to know if we're related. And I started
in
Israel, and I said, my family was told there is no other Seitelbachs in the whole world.
Okay.
When I was in New York. And I wrote back to him, and I told him the names of my grandfathers and all that I knew, and we found out that we're second cousins.
Wow.
And his family is in Haifa. They went in 1936. And I was going to Israel that year in 1998. It was my first trip to Israel. I was able to save the money. And I went and I spent 3 days with my family. I met all of them, including Natan Zak, who is a poet.
A very, very famous poet.
He's my cousin too.
Incredible.
And so I got to Israel and I spent time with my family. 1998 was the 50th anniversary of Israel as a nation, which is the
Jubilee.
Jubilee year. And what does God do in the Jubilee year?
He set the captives free.
And He restores the families together. I got my third family.
Wow. What an amazing God we serve. Friends, you heard this story. This is what the God of Israel does. All what you have to do is do what the same thing that Nate has done, is call and seek. The scripture said that the Messiah is standing and is knocking at the door and is waiting for you to open the door to your heart and welcoming Him. May it be a season of welcoming in King Messiah, and may all of Israel be saved. Shalom v'kol tuv, להתראות.